Hey everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. We're going to do a quick tutorial on my two methods I use to do speed ramping. One of them will be in Premiere and one of them is also in After Effects. So I'm going to switch over to the computer and show you my screen recording and we'll dive into it right away. Okay, so there's two methods that I have here. I'm going to be using this clip that was used in my recent COVID B-roll video, and I have just a basic drone shot here. So with this clip, we'll be using the After Effects one. This is the Premiere tutorial. So I'm going to find the sequence where my sister here throws up the towel and then catches it nicely again. Let's see. So I think right about here, we'll use that one for now. So what we're gonna do is drag this clip all the way over and make this a little bigger. We can drag this up here and you'll see a little line that appears here. This can control settings like time remapping, opacity, and motion. So we're going to click the time remapping button and go over to speed. Now the lines drop down to here. So now if we click P, we're going to get our pen tool up and we can drag along to find the point that we want to start the change. So we want normal speed right here. And just as she's throwing up the towel, we're going to say we want it to go into slow motion right about there. So we're going to mark a point here. And then we're going to find the point that we want it to come back into normal speed, which I'll say is right about here. I'm going to click P, draw another point. Now we've got normal speed leading up to here. And then, because I filmed this in 120 frames per second, that means we can slow down the clip to 20%. So if we zoom in, click here and drag down until you see 20%. Now it'll be in slow motion. So if we play this back, we've got normal speed and then it goes slow motion and back to normal speed. But as you can see, it's super jittery, right? So it goes immediate to slow motion and then immediately back. We want to make that a lot smoother. So one of the best ways to do this, we're going to make this a little bigger again. If you drag out these points, you'll see a little, I don't know what you call this, but this tool will come up. And if you grab the bottom and curve it, we're going to curve the line so that it comes smoothly down into that. So now, let's see what that looks like. So it's a little bit better, but I still want to make these a little bit wider to give it time to slow down. There goes the slow-mo, and then we just have to do the same to the other side. So we drag this out, make the curve, we can make it a little longer. Let's see what that whole thing looks like back. There you go. So that's the first method. You can add in sound design too. So right here, when it goes slow, you could do one of those slow motion kind of like low woo effects. Or some little whooshes, so when it goes back to normal. There's something called a low pass filter that you can put in, which I used in my video as well, that makes the music sound muffled almost, like it's underwater. So there's the first method in Premiere. Then what I'm going to do is we're going to take this clip, which currently is super long, and we want to make it go from playing from here for a few seconds so that it zooms all the way up to here, and then it ends with just a nice little shot coming over the island. So we're going to right click, replace with After Effects composition, Might take a second to load depending on what kind of computer you have. Your clip's going to come up over here. Once we save it, we'll just do save test. So here we go, we've got the clip right here. If you're not familiar with After Effects, this will be a little bit easier of a tutorial. It's not overly complicated, but basically your timeline's here. And this is always going to be your footage, and you can stack footage underneath each other to do different effects. Okay, so my next effect, or my next version of speed ramping adds a little bit of motion blur, and this is probably the most common one that I use. And I'll probably be doing this in my next video, showing you how I do my hyperlapses as well. So footage is in here. We're going to right click, go into time, enable time remapping. When we click that, you'll notice time remapping comes up at the bottom here. So right now everything's linear, meaning it's all the same speed. So just like we did in Premiere, we need to change that as well. These little keyframes, they're called. If you add one at the beginning of the clip and one at the very end, that's going to give us our anchor points from start to finish, the parts that we don't want to speed up. Then I'm going to choose a spot, so I want this to play for about 2 seconds, and then we want the time remapping to start. So we're going to place one here, and then we're going to go all the way down to let the clip play for another few seconds at the end, and add another time ramp here. So now we have this beginning section playing and our ending section playing, but all the time in the middle is where we want to squeeze the time together. So we're going to drag these two keyframes, highlight them, drag them together so that it takes about 2 seconds to hit each other. You can either leave this top, I like trimming this down to about here so we can see what we're working with. So now if we play it back, we're going to have to let it render a little bit. So now that it's rendered, you'll see it'll play nice and short, beginning, launches forward, and comes up over the top. Now there's 2 things right off the bat that I would usually do that I didn't like in this clip. You can see it's a little bit shaky, just a little bit. So usually I would go into my effects panel at the beginning before I edit any of this and add warp stabilizer. Can't type. Warp stabilizer onto my clip, and that'll just make it look a lot smoother, but we're not going to do that. So now to get the motion blur part, so same thing as Premiere, we now have a sudden start and a sudden stop, and it doesn't look very clean. So if you come over to these keyframes here, we can actually right click on them and go to keyframe assist. On the first one here, we want easy ease out. And on this one, we want easy ease in. So now what that's going to do is you'll see it'll be a little bit smoother going into the transition. But we're going to do one more thing to make them a little bit cleaner. If you go and click on one of the keyframes and come over here to the graph editor, we can click that and you'll see a similar tool to what we saw in Premiere. So if you just pull, I'm going to pull the top, maybe a little bit on the bottom. That's going to give us a nice smooth transition in, up, and then out. Play that back one more time. Now we've got this nice smooth ramp up. And you can tweak that by taking the keyframes and moving them in and out if you want to make it look a little bit smoother. And then the last step to get motion blur, we're going to right click, click new, add an adjustment layer on top. And we only want the adjustment layer going over where the speed ramp is, otherwise it'll take way too long to render out. So now this section here, when it goes really fast, we're going to add up here in the effects panel, CC Force Motion Blur. So if you drag that and hold it just on your adjustment layer, let it analyze, now you'll see that motion blur that we get here, and you can change all that by adding more samples or less samples. So once that As you can see now, it's really blurred. It'll just take longer for your computer to render. You can change the shutter angle. I like where mine is right now. Now let me render it out and we'll play it back and show you what that looks like. Okay, now so it's pretty much rendered out, so there's a lot more motion blur. So I know it seems like a lot of work for just a quick like 4-second clip, but these are the things that make the differences in a lot of videos between looking professional, looking really good, and just something that you're kind of doing for fun. So now we can head back down to Premiere, and you'll see that this is turned like a red pinky color and it is all slow and messed up. If we right click, we can go render and replace, and it'll take all of those effects from After Effects and bring them back into your Premiere composition as one nested sequence. We're gonna click OK, let it analyze. Okay, and there we go. So now you'll see that all this will be black after because we cut the original sequence really short. But if we find the end clip, there we go, cut that back. Now we play it from the beginning, and there you go. There's our final product. If you have any other questions, you guys can find me on Instagram, send me a DM, or leave a comment down below, and I'll do my best to get back to you with any questions you guys have. If you have any requests for editing tutorials, I'll do my best to try to get those in there too. Thanks for checking out the tutorial. See you next time.